So today we're going to talk about two new-ish headsets from Razer, the Kraken V4 and the V4 Pro. Now they have a bit of a price variance even though they look kind of similar to each other. So the Kraken V4 is $179.99 US and the Pro edition is $399. Now Razer did send these to me for review, but it won't affect what I say, and no money was exchanged for this review. I basically just asked for the products and for the ability to have an unbiased opinion without any controls on the content of the video, and they were cool with that. So huge thanks to Razer for being supportive of that format. If you do decide to purchase this at the end of the video, I'll have generic Amazon affiliate links in the description below, but there's nothing worked out with Razer regardless of how this video performs or what you think of it. Now the Kraken V4 at $180 puts it right in the middle of some competitive headsets, to be frank. And there's some things that make it stand out to an extent, but other aspects where it's more in line with what you'd expect at this price. So I'm going to start with some basics here. As far as how it works, this is a more traditional wireless headset. You have a couple cables here, one that's USB A to C and one that is an A to C extension, because the dongle, this little guy, is a Type-C adapter. So if you don't have a Type-C port and you want to connect this to something, like you want to use the Type-A of your PlayStation, for example, well, you can use the included cable. Now the Kraken V4 is Bluetooth, but it's not simultaneous. So if you are chasing that, either look at the Pro or some other models on the market. There is a button to quickly switch, and even if you are gaming, if it's connected to Bluetooth, it'll beep and let you know, and then you can hit the button to answer that call, and once the call is done, it'll switch back to the game. Now the Pro has a couple unique things about it. Obviously the price tag at $400 is pretty insane. It's the most expensive wireless headset I think I've covered from any major brand, but what makes this guy special is this box. This OLED control hub has a few extra features on it that a lot of other gaming headsets don't. So for one, just starting with the control hub layout and the build quality, the build and feel and finish of this thing is absolutely incredible. This is all plastic, don't let this finish fool you, but it does still feel really nice, and I like the texture that they put on the side. The rotary movement itself, the actual encoder, feels nice, but it is purely digital, and then you have a nice tactile button to switch through all the modes on the screen. The big kicker with the Pro is when you look at the back, because you have multiple USB inputs here. Now this, just to cover it, it says console, but this is for PlayStation console. It will not work as a wireless headset on Xbox using the console port. So you would connect this to PlayStation, you would connect this to PC, but it also has an aux input, or a 3.5mm TRRS input, which means that you can use this for mic pass-through as well. This is super slick because, again, this wasn't advertised as supporting Xbox, but if you connect the USB port from your Xbox to the PC input, that powers on the unit. That's required for this to work properly, so connect it to PC. It won't work as a headset yet. Then you can use a 3.5mm TRRS, which has the extra ring on it, connect that to the analog in, and then the other side into your Xbox controller, and now it will work. You can hear Xbox just fine. You can use the Dolby Atmos app if you want to, and your microphone will work with party chat and communicating online. It's obviously ergonomically going to be a little bit weird having your controller tethered to a dock, but if you're playing at a desk, well, that's doable, or you can get a longer TRRS cable if you like a lot of other things that the Kraken V4 Pro brings. The thing that I wish this had the most that it doesn't, and this is a big bummer, is it cannot merge any of these connections at once. You have simultaneous Bluetooth, which is awesome, but you have to choose between console or PC or 3.5mm analog. I would have accepted PC versus console because that's kind of to be expected more if you switch between devices, but the analog to me was a huge miss at $400 because a lot of people are looking for wireless solutions while also streaming, and having a box that interfaces with like a Go XLR or some kind of streaming device that has your microphone mixer on it and then getting real-time monitoring, this would have been huge for that. So I'm kind of bummed to see that it doesn't have it. It is what it is, but I just wanted to point that out. So the OLED control hub has a really nice screen on it, and it does feel a little bit fresher and faster than the older SteelSeries game DACs. This is newer and it's a more expensive unit, so that's kind of to be expected, but I am pleased to say that the screen quality is quite nice. It's very fast, and the resolution seems to be a little bit better as well. Now it too comes with a couple cables in the box, and again, you have a C to C cable and a USB A to C. These are really nice premium feeling cables. Razer's been great at that in the past, and it shows here. And I like that they included everything you need to make it work for all three connections, because New as the Astro A50X and Gen 5 is, they didn't give you any extra cables in the box. If you bought the $380 version, no HDMI cables and no extra USB, and the $300 Gen 5 only comes with a single USB, so you can't even connect it to consoles without purchasing your own cables or using some that you already have. So I like that everything's included. I know it's kind of ridiculous to say it comes with cables, but if other brands are doing that, I guess it's going to be worth pointing out. It also comes with a little travel pouch, which is kind of nice. There's no real protection to this. The material feels nice and it looks good, but there's really just there to keep it clean, or if you're putting it in a safe bag or in between some things, it'll keep it from getting scratched up. No physical protection, so if you need that, make sure you get a real case for it. All right, so let's talk about some similarities and differences between the two. You can tell that if I'm laying them flat like this, it'd be pretty difficult to quickly discern which one is which. They have the exact same headband, which to Razer's credit, even on the $180 one, feels really, really nice. There's an adequate amount of padding here, and you can see it goes to about here before it hits the frame for the telescoping yoke. And this is a breathable sport fabric material. This one has it too. So I like the headband a lot, and this outside is kind of like a slightly padded leatherette. So it feels pretty premium. They have the exact same cup design. They both have RGB lighting with 9 zone controls, so you can customize it. And then it changes when you flip it around, because the Pro switches to a leatherette pad. Now the pad dimensions are basically identical. Mine measured a millimeter thicker on the leatherette, but overall it's pretty much the same. And you have an angled baffle here, which is really nice because regardless of the pad depth, when it's at an angle like that, it helps make sure you have a little bit more breathing room towards the back. And it also helps with imaging performance by putting the driver right up in front of your ear. It makes a nice tight presentation of sound, and it helps with bass delivery and, you know, the impact, because again, the Kraken is geared more towards the immersive side, where their Black Shark is more towards like the esports and FPS type thing. That doesn't mean these can't do well in FPS, so we're going to get into that, but we're going to stick with just the controls for now. Looking more closely at the left ear cup, you're going to see a couple differences start to show up. So one, they have the same general design. Again, the headband's the same, and because it's full articulating, you get tilt and you get rotation. It helps a lot with conforming to your head. It's very comfortable to wear. When you look at the Pro upgrades, you can see the fork sticks out a little bit. Again, you wouldn't have noticed it as much from a top view, but this comes out. This is an entirely metal fork. It is super premium feeling. And when you telescope the headband out, you can see the lines here, which is nice for like sizing purposes. This one has that too, but this one is 100% plastic. This one's all metal. It's a little bit heavier because it's metal, but it's not by much, and I find that clamp force is comparable as well, so the comfort is still really good. In addition to the pad materials being similar, you get a sport breathable fabric on the standard Kraken that matches the headband, and on the V4 Pro you get a full leatherette. The leatherette obviously won't breathe as well, but this one wasn't too bad. It's still very plush. You can see there's a decent amount of give there. So even if you wear glasses, it'll still be pretty comfortable. The sport fabric is just going to be better for longer durations of gaming. So if you're concerned with ultimate comfort, the less expensive V4 is actually a little bit better because it's a little bit lighter and it's more breathable. If you're chasing more of a bass impact and that's really important to you, the V4 Pro having that tighter seal is going to deliver a little bit more tighter dynamic bass. Now, when you keep looking at the left ear cup, there's a lot of similarities to the eye. You have the telescoping microphone because, again, if you're using this for immersive or casual gaming, you may not always be talking to someone, so they wanted something that was convenient to tuck away. We'll get into mic quality afterwards, but that was the reason behind it, and naturally that limits how large the microphone can be. You have a USB-C charge port, you have a power button, you have a volume wheel, and then you have the mute button, and when you do mute, it lights up the microphone LED on the end in red, so you know you're muted. In addition to the audio prompt, and Razer Synapse will show you that you're muted as well. You won't see this on the spec sheets, but the buttons are upgraded on the Pro, so if you listen to the standard V4, a little bit more clicky, go to the Pro, they're a little bit more dense, so there's actually more dampening, and it's a higher quality button feel on the Pro. So even though they look identical, it's nice to see that they're also upgrading some of the components as well. Looking at the right ear cup, you have a similar layout but different button functionality. On the standard Kraken V4, you have a game to chat mix, which is super awesome. However, I wish they had a volume wheel instead, because in order to interact with game to chat adjustment, you have to press and hold the button for 3 seconds. Same issue with the Stealth Pro from Turtle Beach. I wasn't a super fan of that because why have a button that is only purposed is to work one thing, but you still have to press and hold it for a while in order to adjust it. Maybe they don't want people accidentally doing it, but it does give you a voice prompt, so you know. Press and hold it for 3 seconds, adjust your game chat, then you have to wait a little bit, it'll time out, and then the volume wheel will start working as a standard volume wheel again. And then this button has multiple features. You toggle Bluetooth versus 2.4 mode, and you can change your 4 EQ presets. There are 3 presets pre-included and plus custom, which once you customize it will save to the headset, and it'll allow you to toggle between all 4. On the V4 Pro, the small button kind of works as a couple things. You can enable and disable side tone, you can change the mode, and then you can cycle through your presets as well. But the big kicker with the Pro is this button right here, which is the Haptics button. And the Haptics button makes this thing shake like a lot. You have different levels of adjustment you can have for haptic strength, and on the Synapse software you can customize just how powerful that is. It's jarring, and I didn't expect it to be as strong or powerful as it was. I set it on 1, the lowest possible setting, and when I got cooked by a grenade on Call of Duty, it was super powerful. Or if you're stunned in Call of Duty and they're like trying to simulate that heartbeat sensation like you're recovering from trauma, it is just shaking your head so much to a point where after realistically about 20 minutes of that was too much for me. This is where I think it's the biggest variance on if this is the right headset for you. I'm not saying this to say that this is the best headset you can buy. It's $400. It's really expensive, and we'll get into sound quality, but a huge part of what you're paying for is the upgraded build quality with the premium materials like the metal forks, the buttons and stuff. But this haptics engine is no joke. Whether that's for you or not is entirely up to you. I can tell you for me, I play a lot of action-based FPS, you know, like Call of Duty, I do Apex, and then I do racing games a lot. And on racing games, it's not as bad on the lower setting because you can actually choose what frequencies trigger the vibration, which is great. But anything that has a lot of explosions, man, it is super powerful. The wireless performance of both of these is great. I call that the toilet test because if you leave the room, you have a wireless headset. Sometimes you want to go get some food or relieve yourselves, maybe trash talk your buddies, whatever, and they both get over 50 feet. And it's very stable. I had no cutouts, and I do other stress tests where I have multiple wireless devices turned on in the same room to help simulate some noise as if, you know, you have a lot of other devices around you, and it was rock solid. I had no dropouts or latency issues or anything like that.
All right, this is what my voice sounds like using the Kraken V4 Pro mic. And yes, I think the microphone's quality is just okay. It's definitely not as good as the Black Shark V2 Pro 2023 edition, which has a larger capsule. And this one is obviously a bit smaller because it's designed to retract and disappear into the headset itself. Where on the Black Shark, that wasn't possible. So they made it detachable, but that mic is significantly bigger. So there is some validity to having an expected downgrade in sound quality. However, the new Astro A50 mic, the Gen 5 and Astro A50X, both have the same exact mic. It sounds fantastic, and that microphone's smaller as well. So I think they could have pushed it a little bit. I think it's twofold. The capsule isn't voiced as nicely, and then I think there's a little bit of compression here where you don't have as much bandwidth. So it adds a little bit of a robotic distortion to it. When you look at the Synapse software, we can customize the microphone sound. So if I click on the Kraken V4 Pro mic and then we look at the settings here, right now the default sound profile is mic boost, which is the best sounding one of the 3 in my opinion. Here's what my voice sounds like using the broadcast preset, and this is what my voice sounds like using the conference preset. I'm going to switch back to mic boost, and then I do want to talk about side tones. So the side tone actually works okay, but it is a little robotic sounding. It's not as bad as some other headsets I reviewed lately with the whole robotic thing, like, you know, what I got with, for example, the Alienware headset. And if you max out the side tone, it's very loud. You can hear yourself with ease, but there is some feedback, and it can be a little overpowering for the rest of the mix. So you get a little bit of white noise in the background. I find that if you want to use the side tone, just set it to like 7 or 8, and it's a good balance of hearing yourself without it kind of overpowering everything else or creating too much noise. Now, my microphone gain is set to 75 out of 100. At one point, it went all the way down to 0, and I didn't know why my mic wasn't working because I toggled mute and unmute. So I had to drag the slider back up, but it was still really quiet. And what I found was if you make massive gain changes, mute the mic here and unmute it. You could see for a brief moment the microphone lit up in red. That reset the gain and fixed the sensitivity for me. So if you ever have an issue, just try that. Now, microphone enhancement is kind of effective, but I wish you could combine a couple enhancements. So if I turn it on, voice normalization helps because if you speak quietly, it boosts it. And then if you get very loud, it will help cut some of that volume down. Now, vocal clarity, I'm not a huge fan. You can hear it actually makes things sound more processed, doesn't sound as good. Mic noise cancellation is pretty effective. If you go too aggressive, it is going to add a little bit of distortion to your voice again. So all of these benefits for noise reduction, and here it is with voice gate, which is a noise gate basically. Anytime you do these, it can impact sound quality a little bit, but it does help reduce background noise. This microphone picks up a decent amount of background noise considering how processed it sounds. I would personally use either the noise cancellation at a decent setting, like 30 to 50, or voice gate set to low. Doing so will help get rid of some of the background noise. It's not going to be perfect, but to me, it's the best balance. As far as the rest of Synapse goes, there's a few key things with the Kraken Pro I want to discuss. So, one is if you click on it on the sound setting where it says volume, this is where you customize what the OLED screen has for features as far as what you can turn on and off. Once I've kind of dialed everything in, again, I'm not changing the EQ on the unit. I don't like the built in presets for the EQ. I'm not using the haptics profiles as much. I'm basically just using volume and chat mix. And so that's like the fastest way to quickly double press the button on the controller, adjust your balance, and then get back to volume. If you do want to make all these other changes, then it's nice that it gives you these options. You just toggle them on, hit save, and then next time you use the unit, those features will be there. You can also customize the button on the right side. If you click on switch audio EQ, it shows you what the functions of that does, and that was helpful for understanding how to use the headset. And then if you click on this little button here where it says audio function, you can have it so it changes between your EQ profiles or to enable or disable microphone monitoring. I never really wanted to change the EQ profile, so you're probably better off just setting it to mic monitoring anyway, if again you're like me, and then that'll at least make sure that you don't affect your sound quality by accident. Now I'll get into sound quality here in a moment, but you have different presets here. You have game, movie, music, and custom, which spoiler alert, this is my custom EQ. So take a screenshot here. You can see that it says plus three, minus two, plus two, minus two, -1, +4, 0, and 0. You can always tune this to personal taste, but this is what I found I liked using for a lot of games and mixed content. Now, another cool feature with this, especially if you play FPS games, if you go to the enhancement tab and turn this on, sound normalization adds a little bit of dynamic range compression. This really does help kind of make sure that footsteps are not so much quieter than gunshots or airstrikes. This compressor can be a little distracting with certain games, so if you find that it sounds weird, just turn it off. Otherwise, you have bass boost and voice clarity, which this does not need in this case. It does mess up the tuning a little bit to, my personal preference, but you can adjust that. I always recommend playing with it to see what you like. It's not like my word is everything, so definitely mess around with it a little bit. One quick thing on the haptics note, if you turn haptics on and let's say you increase the intensity or your mic gain is set high and you're talking to the mic, the bass from side tone triggers the haptics. So if I tap this mic, it actually is making my headset vibrate a little bit right now. So it's kind of a weird sensation. I wish that the microphone input didn't affect that because it's kind of odd to have it included. But just if you notice anything weird like that happening when you're talking, there's like this faint rumbling sensation when you speak. That's probably because of your mic. So this is definitely one of those things where you want to experiment for yourself and see what you like. There's controlled and balanced and dynamic, which is like crazy strong because that vibrates with all frequencies. I usually recommend doing something with lower frequencies because you kind of want it more for just the bass and explosions anyway, not for all the other noise happening in the game. And then you can customize the OLED screen as well, which is kind of cool. You have these nice animated screens because it's a higher refresh rate. It looks pretty good. Now, I'm a nerd, so I recommend one of the bottom two because I like data. And if you click edit on system info, you can actually customize what it shows. So it was kind of toggling between a few different things. You can customize this or remove it or modify it. So I kind of like that. Again, you just customize this to what you like, but I wanted to show you what was possible. You also have the ability to adjust the time to home screen, the screensaver, the OLED brightness, typical things you would expect for a device like this. And then, of course, you have the RGB lighting on the side because let's face it, it's a Razer immersive product, and that's part of what you're paying for. They both have pretty customizable systems. You can see right now I'm on quick effects and I'm doing spectrum cycling, which is going to go through all the colors. If I go through static, I can pick just a single color and let's just show you how fast that is to adjust. I'm going to click blue here and you'll see it kind of fade. There we go. And now we're on blue. So you can kind of make it your own. If you use Razer Chroma and you have multiple Razer products, well, you can link them all together and have it react to different game profiles or whatever you're launching. So it's very easy to set themes here. I'm not like super big into RGB on a headset because I'd rather have the battery life, but it is nice you get a lot of customization. And again, that is part of what you're paying for with the Kraken setup. And then, of course, you have the power savings, which you can set. Now, this does, even if I'm using the microphone and power saving is on, if you're talking to it, but you're not playing anything, like you're just talking to some people, this will still shut off. So just make sure that you're at least sending some kind of audio to it so you don't turn it off too early. Otherwise, obviously, extend the time. And then demo takes you to the THX video demo, which you can turn THX on and off. I didn't cover this too much before, but Razer did purchase THX. I usually play in stereo mode for first person shooters, although THX can help make some games sound more immersive. It's not the THX of old, where it was like way too much of a stereo effect or surround effect, and I think it hurt the experience. The new one is significantly better. They seem to have revamped that engine, and I do like it on certain single player games, just for casual gaming. It can be fun just because it's different. It's a different way to experience it, so maybe give that a shot.
Okay, so this is a standard V4 microphone, just so you can hear the difference. If there's any difference to you, I'm using the same preset that I was just talking to you on the Pro. You still get microphone gain adjustments. I have it set to the same gain as the Pro. You still get the enhancements, which have the exact same effects. The side tone is different. If you can see, the numbering system is different. The side tone is not as good. As far as loudness goes, the Pro version gets noticeably louder, but it also has more background noise as a result. This one doesn't get as loud, but it is a little bit better. It doesn't have as much of a robotic sound to it, so you can play with this basically maxed out, and the white noise is there, but it's not as bad as some other headsets out there. If you just want to hear a little bit of yourself, you basically have to get right about 93, 95. Otherwise, if you're at like 60 or 70, you can't hear it at all. So the volume setting is kind of weird. Everything else, though, is basically the same. You still get power adjustment for savings. You can have lighting on the RGB because, again, this has the RGB controls as well. And then on the sound side, you have the same 4 presets, or the same 3 presets, and custom. So there is chat mix on both of these. You could see it adjust here. Obviously, with the other one, I showed you how to assign it to the unit, which makes it much easier to adjust, but there's no headset control for chat mix.
So taking a look at the Kraken V4 Pro in game mode, if you look at the bass profile, you could see that, well, there's no bass. It's gone. Like everything below 150 hertz is missing, and then the rest of the tuning is okay, but that sounds pretty terrible because there's no bass to back it up. So let's go look at the Pro version to see if that fixes the problem. Nope, it's actually worse because not only is the bass still missing, it's even brighter up top, which has a pretty negative effect on overall sound quality. Thankfully, there are other presets we can activate to fix this problem, right? So let's go to movie mode and add that. And we got our bass back at the sacrifice of all of our mids. So let's go to the V4 Pro and see what happens here. And sure enough, the same thing keeps happening. So this is what I was talking about. The 2 profiles, there's one that's either tons of bass and tons of treble, like crazy V-shaped. Then you have the game mode, which is designed for competitive play, but when it's this much bass reduction, you're actually losing some of the fundamental tones of even footsteps on a lot of games like Valorant and Call of Duty as well. This won't have as much of a negative impact on games like Apex, but it doesn't mean it's going to necessarily sound great. So then we look at the music preset, which to me is the best one out of all of them. So I'm going to activate that. And you can see on the V4 Pro, music is looking pretty sweet. So I'm going to do the same thing with the standard V4. We're going to disable and remove the movie modes. This is a much better sound profile. Like, these are tuned really well in the music one. They just have a lot of bass. Again, these are intended for more of the immersive side of gaming, not so much like the esports side, like what the Black Shark is, but it's not bad out of the box. Now, if you do some custom EQ, like I've done some tuning on mine, you can see the orange line if you look at the Pro. Let me hide the standard V4. So you can do some minor tweaks. I wanted to keep some of the impact from footsteps, but I reduced some of the mid-bass bloat a little bit. And overall, this sound profile is pretty good. The 8 kilohertz is a little bit bright, so if you find it a little bit sparkly or sharp sounding, just reduce the 8 kilohertz. That's probably what you're hearing. Channel matching is okay on both units, and I took a lot of driver measurements, if you will. So on the V4 Pro, I have a little bit of fluctuation here in the mid-range, and then if you look at the standard V4, and we split the channels here, you can see that the tolerance of my regular V4 was a little bit better. When you deal with a closed back headphone, especially with the leatherette pads, which are very dependent on having a seal, you'll have more fluctuations in measurement. So some of this channel imbalance can also be a byproduct of placement on the rig, because if you move a headset around on your ears, or if there's like a break on the back, it definitely affects your sound quality. So make sure you always have it in kind of the right spot. Now, measurements aside, as far as how this performs for real world use and what I like, the music preset isn't that bad. I actually could just play on that no problem. If I didn't have custom EQ, I think it'd still be a better option out there compared to some other wireless headsets on the market. It's just a very bass forward headset in general, regardless of which model you buy. Again, this is with the music preset. I don't think the game preset or movie preset are really usable in any situation. I'm not a super fan, but your mileage may vary. On the game preset, because there's no bass, if you turn the haptics engine on, it does add a little bit of a bass sensation because it's shaking like with that thump of an explosion, for example. So that helps fill it a little bit, but at the same time, I'd much rather just rely on a better quality of sound right off the bat. Now, I really like the Kraken V4 more than I thought I would because it's so comfortable to wear. These pads are excellent. This baffle is just barely padded, but because this is a little bit deeper than the Black Shark, my ears never really touched it anyway. Just the lightweight, lighter clamp, breathability is awesome for gaming. And as far as how the sound quality goes, my EQ did keep some of the bass because I wanted the immersion. It's clear enough. It's resolving. I could still be competitive. I actually enjoyed this quite a bit, even in the chaos of some FPS games. So even though the Black Shark V2 Pro is geared more towards like the FPS crowd, partly because of the design, the feature set, and the improved microphone for both noise rejection and sound quality, for actual just pure sound on FPS, I actually liked this one a little bit more. They did a good job building it from a physical standpoint as far as imaging performance goes. It's just a matter of using EQ to kind of get the most out of it. And once you do that, it's really well balanced. EQ really is a great equalizer at a certain point for a lot of headsets. And I think this has a better sound profile than the SteelSeries Nova 7, which I love for FPS. I'm still going to talk about that throughout the holidays as one of the better options as far as a general purpose, affordable headset. This one just has a little bit more tactile bass delivery. I find that that was one of its strengths, and you don't have to have a lot of bass to still have good quality bass. So it is a good balance of that. And on the music side, again, with some EQ, I do find that I get a little bit less details with like vocals and stuff. It's not as easy to make this sound natural for vocals while still being very clear. It's not an audiophile headset. If you need that, that's where something like the Odyssey Maxwell comes in. Or believe it or not, the Astro A50X and Gen 5, to me, perform a little bit better for music. And if you EQ those, they get even better. So it just depends on what you're chasing. I think part of it is just a matter of if you're partial to either Razer as a brand or the other feature sets, or you like this design. You know, Razer's known for RGB and being flashy, but even if you turn this off, I actually think this is a pretty nice understated design. It's super clean, and there's nothing like really gaudy about it, again, if the RGB is off. There is something to be said about the build quality, and I'm going to get into sound more, I promise, but just to reiterate this, having this kind of metal, this build quality, it feels so well made. You are paying for that. You're not paying purely for sound. You're paying for haptics, you're paying for RGB, and a lot of these premium buttons and metal components. So if that's really important to you, that is something to consider, and I think that does sway some of the perception of what we have for value. Purely on the sound, once you've EQ'd it, the advantage that the Pro has over the Kraken is the bass delivery. The bass is tighter, it's punchier, it's more dynamic, and it's even more immersive. So if you're okay with it not being as breathable because of the leatherette pad, this does a better job at blocking some of my PC fan noise. If you're playing with a high-powered computer and the fans spin up after a while, having a better seal is going to make the sound seem even better to you because you're not competing with other things in the background. That does make you more competitive for footsteps if you don't have a noise floor that's too high that's overriding, you know, a quieter footstep sound. Purely on the music side of things, I didn't think this did anything so magical over the Kraken V4 aside from the bass. They can be EQ'd to be very similar, and the default profiles out of the box, I actually like the Kraken V4 more than the Pro because this one's tuned a little bit different, and I found that some of the treble can be a little bit sharp sometimes. It's more noticeable for music because, you know, the timbre or tonality of a song might not sound as natural, but again, with EQ, we can tame some of that. My biggest gripe is, you know, the 8 kilohertz peak. I've never been a fan with that. I've been very vocal. Turtle Beach has the same problem. So if you're sensitive to treble, maybe reduce some of that. But there's really good potential here, and it still sounds very clear. There is a little bit better resolution to this and clarity for music. So if you can do the custom EQ, I feel like those biocellulose drivers have a little bit more clean presentation of sound once you've adjusted it accordingly to, again, get the most out of what the drivers are capable of doing. Now, when you compare Kraken to other headsets in the market, there's a lot of things to consider, and it's never black and white. And this is a big challenge for both consumers and reviewers to really identify what's the best product for everyone, because there really isn't a single perfect product. So when you compare purely on what's the best microphone I can get for $200, The Black Shark has the best mic, pretty much period, but definitely the best for the money, and it's the same price or less than these, especially when it's on sale. And then if you want the best sound quality, well, that's where the Odyssey Maxwell comes in at $300. And this is where it becomes kind of murky because yes, the sound quality is the best, but it's not as comfortable. It doesn't have the same reputation for build quality either. I've seen some comments online of people having some issues with the Maxwell. So you can value things differently, and that's part of what you're paying for. It's never black and white where every headset at 200 should have the exact same mic as the Black Shark, because some brands put priorities on different areas. I'm not making excuses for companies that charge a lot more and have a terrible mic, because that is, there's a little bit of an area there where it's like, come on, let's be reasonable. But I just want to preface that. Now, I will have some guides coming up soon that helps kind of discern amongst all the flagship wireless headsets out there, and some other guides to help consider the more value-oriented stuff, or at least good mid-range headsets. Again, I don't think there's going to be one headset perfect for everybody, but I do hope you found this video helpful enough to at least kind of see where Kraken kind of falls in place amongst some of the others out there. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you at those upcoming videos. With that being said, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.